All right, what's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Why Brands Work. I'm here with Will, as always, and I'm Brian. We're both the co-founders of Flow Candy and your hosts today. And we've got a cool one for you, one that's very close, near and dear to my heart, actually. I am an extremely regular consumer of this product. I actually have some right here. It's
Let me get it
Celsius.
too. Let me hold on. I gotta get
Yeah, I think we'll both crack one open for this episode.
that.
Uh,
Here we go.
oh, nice. What flavor are you? Is that the mango passion fruit?
Peach mango, but it's not the carbonated one. I
Oh, the
try.
non-carbonated.
I
Okay.
prefer the carbonated one.
Same, same. I've got a peach vibe here today. Um,
All right. Cheers.
not my cheers, yeah. But we actually have a pretty funny story about we discovered Celsius at the same time. You and I did, I think, right? At the mastermind we went to. I don't know, maybe you were drinking it before that. Um,
I think I had always thought it was like this penny stock thing. It's kind of like sparkling ice to me, you know. But
right.
then it
Sure.
like, but then it really started to get. It was around that time, like peak COVID or right before COVID, maybe, that I felt like
Hmm.
this brand really started to get mainstream traction.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
it was not on my radar at all
yeah.
until we went to that 2X mastermind.
Mhm.
Shout out to 2X, Austin and Tom, great people. But we went to a mastermind to meet up with other entrepreneurs, and they just had a cooler full of Celsius, just tons of them. I didn't really take a look at how much caffeine was in these. And I don't know if you remember, but I was just like chugging them,
Yeah,
back to back. And then I realized, oh my God, I probably had like 1,000 milligrams of caffeine today after drinking these. Probably need to slow down. But they're just that good. That's really what it comes down to. The flavors are great. Um, it's all really, really tasty. But let's get back to the format. Why don't you walk us through why we should care about Celsius? Well,
I think off the rip, this is a business that um, has a crazy history. It's about a 20-year-old company.
hmm
Um, so there's a lot we're going to unpack there. Um, and but in the past 5 years, it's gone from $75 million in sales to $1.32 billion in revenue. That's one thing to look at. And just in the past 2 months, too, I don't know how much we're going to dive into this, but they're a publicly traded company. Their market cap has been cut in half. They've gone from $22 billion to $11 billion. Their stock price has basically gone from $90 to $40 or $45 or something like that. So those are two like big things to sort of start off from my perspective.
Yeah, there's just been like this absolutely meteoric
Mhm.
rise that from the ashes in a way.
Yeah.
Um, that's been pretty interesting. And so from a background perspective, they're about 20 years old. I think they started in around 2004 or so.
Mhm.
Um, and they were trying to create this, what's the thermogenic, is that the term for it? Basically like a calorie
Yeah.
burning drink.
They tried to invent their own category. I think that's interesting too. They took that
Mhm.
approach of which is it's like risk reward type thing, you know. Obviously, if you can invent your own category and be the first and the market leader, the first one in that, like there's huge blue ocean sort of revenue potential there. But it's also really hard to do that. But they originally tried to create this category of like calorie burning drinks, a drink that burns calories through
Mhm.
thermogenic or thermogenesis. Their proprietary MetaPlus formula, which is still they're still using that today, but that originally was what it was, and the packaging was totally different too.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen some images. It's very, very different looking.
Yeah,
And they did have some initial investment as well, which I found was pretty interesting because it was actually, the investor was someone who had made their money in multivitamins.
yeah,
So
Yeah, you're talking about Carl DeSantis.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So this guy comes in. I think he had sold a vitamin supplement business, Rexall Sundown, which I never heard of. But then when I saw it, I was like, oh, I've seen their packaging before.
Yeah,
But he sold that.
the
Yeah.
Sundown Essentials or Sundown Naturals or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You know, it looks very familiar. It's something I think everyone would recognize. And they started in, you know, he sold that company in the 2000s, and I think started it in the 80s as a like direct
Yeah.
response vitamin supplement company. So people
For sure.
mailing
Yeah.
in, you know, mail order and that kind of thing. So deeply
Yeah.
already kind of embedded in this like fitness nutrition category.
Yeah. And he sold it for 1.8 billion in the year 2000.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. So I mean, like that's what I don't know if that's true, but that's the research I saw. So
Yeah.
yes, a mega. I think the story I had read, it was founded by husband and wife team Steve Haley and his wife in 2004. This guy Carl DeSantis is a local. They founded in like Boca Raton, I think, South Florida.
Mhm.
Carl lived there too and came across he had started a family office, like an investment company. And through that, somebody in his family office, he came across Celsius and became one of their first investors.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I found as well, and
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's he supported them through a lot of stuff. I think, you know, just kept on investing in the company over a decade. You know, they got to the point of being listed on the New York Stock Exchange, you know, by the end of the 2000s or so, and then it just started crashing, and you know, just they just couldn't find the traction there. Um, Eventually leading to them actually being delisted
Yeah.
from the Nasdaq as well, and having to kind of like go into recovery mode.
Yeah. Like listed on the NASDAQ, delisted, then they're listed again.
Yeah,
Now they're, publicly traded again. But um, really interesting what happened there. Um,
yeah. Let's talk about
and
the rebound. Let's get into that.
yeah,
Of, you know, how did they? So they're delisted. This is, I think, in the early 2010s, so like
yeah,
2011 or so, and that's when Carl DeSantis just put in an entirely new leadership
management.
team. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I there's a couple guys that came in. Um, this guy Jerry David came in, known as sort of like a turnaround specialist. I
Hmm.
guess in CPG. Um, Another guy came in, Kravitz, and then John Fieldly came in too as their CFO. He is now their current CEO.
Hmm.
So that team came in around what did we have here? I don't know the exact year, but yeah, I mean they totally changed like the whole entire strategy changed. Um, I have that basically they they really changed, moved away from this burn calorie sort of um, this burn calorie sort of angle, and it was more towards positioned more towards like energy drinks and like living healthy.
Hmm.
And we can talk about this, like how they're different than some of the other energy drinks in the market. Um,
Yeah.
but I think that was like a big shift that they made. They also changed their distribution. They niched down into a couple key markets
Yeah.
like California, Texas, South Florida, and really drilled down there. Um, but yeah, I mean, and then I think Jerry also came in and got some key distribution in Asia. He got some early investment from people like Russell Simmons and stuff like that. This is all pre their new IPO and everything. But yeah, I mean, I think that they totally turned that business around. That
Yeah. No, I think the first thing you touched on there with moving away from a weight loss, you know, because that was kind of how they positioned themselves before, was like a weight loss drink rather than a healthy lifestyle drink, because that's really what they are now.
Mhm.
Around this time is when they came up with their kind of slogan or mantra, which is "Live Fit." And I think another key thing that I saw in one of the interviews that I read, is that their initial goal around that time in 2012 or so was to actually focus on repeat customer acquisition.
Okay.
So how do you build? They had a goal, and they actually set a KPI of like 35,000 people. They were like, we want to fill a stadium with people that drink Celsius every day. So how do we get
Yeah.
it to the point where there are 35,000 people drinking Celsius every single day? Because that was actually their like profitability run rate. We need 35,000 people to be drinking every day for us to be profitable here. Um,
Nice.
and so that was like their initial kind of goal, and that led to a lot of kind of what you're talking about now. It's like niching down, getting into kind of like gyms, being very specifically like focused around like almost a pre-workout routine. But there was a lot of focus around that of like, how do we make Celsius a part of people's routine? How do we get it in
Yeah.
there? Like this is kind of their vitamin supplement pre-workout around those people that do want that boost, because the reality of Celsius is it does give you, there's a lot of caffeine in it, and it's got a lot of
Yeah.
other vitamins and things like that. It does give you a nice little lift and boost and mood boost as well, because it's got the taurine or guarana or whatever in it that also, L-theanine too, which is like a mood boosting supplement as well. And so, there's a bunch of stuff in there that really does kind of give you that jump start. And
Yeah.
so they started just really niching down into who would use that and who could use that, and
Mhm.
focusing in on how do we get 35,000 people to make sure that this is their go-to beverage every single day.
Nice. That's the basic supplement playbook, kind of.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
get get consumption. Make sure they're consuming
Right.
the product. Mhm.
Right. And John Fieldley says that he has routinely drank 2 Celsius a day for like the entire time he's worked
Wow, I'm drinking 3 today already. Jesus.
there.
Yeah.
It says on the
Gonna have a,
can, Will,
gonna
it
have like a
says,
heart attack. Yeah.
yeah, it says on the can they recommend not do not drink more than 2 servings a day. So, and actually I
Yeah.
I have a Canadian version because I'm in Canada right now, which
Hmm.
first off, I think that they have less caffeine. How much caffeine does yours have in it?
Mine says 200 milligrams, which is like two
Yeah,
cups of coffee.
right. Yeah, so I have mine, it's the same type as yours,
Yeah.
like the same size, and it only has
Yeah.
140 milligrams of caffeine in it.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I've read this before on the American ones. It says
Yeah.
only recommends 1 serving per day here. So obviously they're quite a bit more stringent on the Health Canada is a little bit more strict on what they think you should be doing. It even has
Yeah.
like a little warning label on the top
Yeah.
there that says like high supplements or something like that, and then like a
Oh wow.
high caffeine content like warning. I'm blurred, but you can't really see it there. Like high caffeine content on the bottom as well.
Yeah.
Um,
None of that is going
but
on in the U.S.
no, definitely not.
Yeah.
They also
Yeah.
have very limited flavors here in Canada. Like I'm not usually a peach vibe guy. I like peach vibe, but
Yeah.
there's a bunch of other flavors that I prefer. But you can really only find like that, orange, and like kiwi guava here. So it's been a little bit
Yeah.
disappointing.
We could talk
Have you
about
seen the
their
big?
distribution because I think they just started trying to expand internationally. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and
Totally.
but yeah. Um,
Okay, sidebar. Sorry. Let's get back to
oh
the
yeah, yeah, yeah. Right.
let's all right, so where were we? We were talking about how they kind of turn this all around by focusing in on these repeat customers, trying to get more people to like put this into their routine every single day. And so yeah, let's actually talk about the product itself, and
Mhm.
why it works so well. I mentioned some of these like different ingredients. We've talked about the high caffeine content. The other thing as well is that it's 10 calories. So
Yeah.
that's the other a huge differentiator from like Monster or Red Bull. I think a Red Bull, like a small one, is like 200 calories or something, and there's like 40 grams of sugar in it or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, whereas here, obviously, there's going to be like, I don't know, does it have aspartame in it or anything like that? I think there is. Um, there's definitely like fake flavoring and things like that in here, but it doesn't have nearly as terrible of ingredients as some like normal energy drinks do. Like the Monsters and the Red Bulls and the what else am I missing? Those kind of drinks of the world. Um,
Yeah.
and what else stands out to you in terms of the Celsius as a product itself?
Yeah, so the product to me, they have three core products here. There's what we're drinking, which I guess is the originals or the vibe. There's the essentials, this new line that they have out, and then there's the powders. I think for the probably most of their, I couldn't find it, but I think most of their sales is probably coming from the originals and the vibe. And I think to me, what stands out here is the CEO, he kind of talked about it. They're sitting on the crossroads of a couple of trends. One is like low calorie fitness taste, and I think it does taste better than say a Monster Energy or a Red Bull, and there's lower calories, and it's positioned differently too. It's positioned in that live fit, that's sort of their mission or whatever, and or their tagline. And I think like where it's different, and I don't know if this is the product or this is the marketing, or but it's like it's positioned in a way that where it's much more gender neutral. I think that I think it's something like it's an even split between male and females that are drinking this. Well, that's clearly not the case with Red Bull and Monster. It's very like rebellion and extreme sports driven punk rock, and it's like a much more of a masculine brand, in my opinion. This is positioned more like literally. I'll go to my gym, and this is like right next to the protein drinks, um, in their sort of gym distribution. And if you go into like a convenience store, it's definitely right next to the energy drinks. But I do think that they are. That's how the products are positioned differently, and yeah, I mean they are eating share in that category from Monster and Red Bull.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I before before Celsius, I never really would have considered myself an energy drink person.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, you know, and part of that is, I don't think that you buy and interact with products that say something about you, and I was like, I don't like what holding a Monster and drinking a Monster says about me, in my opinion.
yeah, yeah,
That might be for some people, but that doesn't really fit my vibe, right?
yeah,
Um, there was occasionally, I would drink a Red Bull if we're like going out or something like that. That might be something, but it's not something again that I would want to like have in my fridge at home. I'm not a person that's going to buy Red Bull and keep it at home.
right,
But for some reason, Celsius just fits who I want to be, who I aspire to be. Sure, like I'm not the super fitness guy, but like live fit, all right, that fits a little bit better than like a
yeah,
sugary energy drink or something like that. Um,
mhm,
and the whole positioning thing that you mentioned there's a couple things. First and foremost, one thing that I found that John said is that the one thing that we really did was try to understand who was drinking Celsius and why, and then how do we use that to create a foundation. So this is something that we keep coming back to all the time, whether it's with brands that we work with or talking about brands here on the show, is that the more you understand who your customer is and how a product makes them feel, the better off you're going to be about attracting more people like that. Because if you understand the demographic really, really well, if you understand who that, audience of one is, or however you want to say it, if you really can relate to who that person is and why they're drinking your product, you're going to be able to focus in your messaging and broadcast that, and all the people that are like that are going to start flocking to you. And I think that's something that Celsius has done really well. And you mentioned it before of like they're in the gym right next to the protein shakes and stuff like that. Whereas convenience stores, yeah, they're in the energy drink section. But have you bought Celsius from a grocery store at all?
no, I haven't.
Okay, so there's it depends on the grocery store. Not all of
Hmm.
them carry Celsius, right? Or some of them, most of them do in like some cases and things like that. But there are a few grocery store chains that actually have like I don't know the retail term for it, but like Celsius delivers them their own like it's like a refrigerator built into a display. It's like an end
Yeah,
cap
they have them
display.
on the end cap. The end cap.
Right,
Yeah,
and it's a refrigerator
yeah,
just with
yeah,
Celsius in it, and the banners on the side, and then a top shelf and side shelves with like, they're not chilled or anything. They're just on the shelf.
yeah.
But that end cap, every
Hmm.
time I've seen it, has been in the pharmacy section or the health food section
Okay,
rather than on the drink section.
interesting.
So
I did not
they
notice that.
have, yeah. So every single time they're getting themselves next to the health products. Like you have protein powders, Cliff Bars, Celsius.
Yeah,
Instead of it being like Monster, Nos, Prime, Celsius, no, you have protein powder, really great, for you snacks and things, and then here's your Celsius as well,
yeah.
next to the meal replacement shakes.
So it's
And
another
so,
example of a brand bridging themselves to another category, essentially.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. If you
Hmm.
find, it's really going to the next level to be able to get to that point. Actually, the only one that I ever find in the like energy drink section is the essentials. Have you
Okay.
had one of the essentials
I'm not at
ones
this.
yet?
I've not seen that.
They are actually like monster size
Yeah.
cans, like they're
Yeah.
bigger cans, and they have
Hmm.
270 milligrams of
Yeah. Wow.
caffeine in them. They are aggressive. It's a great way
Yeah.
to start a day though if you have like a bunch of stuff to
Yeah.
do. So I will
Yeah.
say that. They yeah, so that those they do carry. I've yet to see those in like a fridge. They those aren't as popular either. They're not everywhere yet. They're
No.
kind of just
No.
you you
Yeah.
you you see them if you know where to look for them and that kind of stuff.
They
But
just launched it,
otherwise,
I think, literally this year, and it's filled with like it's
yeah,
like high caffeine count, but it's got like essential oils in it or something. Yeah.
yeah, I think
Something
it
like
still
that.
has the same like
Yeah. Yeah.
honestly, I think they just slapped a name on being able to do a bigger one with more caffeine in it.
Basically.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but that's been the most, I think if anything encapsulates why
Hmm.
Celsius works, in my opinion, is that like putting, whatever their agreement is with retailers. And I don't
Hmm.
know, we'll talk about Pepsi and their involvement a little bit here. I
Hmm.
don't know if they were able to help them kind of align this with the grocery stores and stuff, but the fact that they're strategically thinking we want to be in the pharmacy section. We want to be next to the health foods, next to the contact solution and deodorant, rather than in this like in the soda aisle. Because I
Yeah.
don't know about you, but you're very health conscious, and so I'm sure like when you're going through the grocery store, you just skip that aisle. You skip the soda and chips
Yeah.
aisle pretty much.
The soda aisle
Yeah,
is a
unless
dirty aisle. Yeah. So it's like, yeah.
exactly. It's a dirty
Yeah.
aisle. You don't think that. You
Yeah.
don't want that unless
Yeah.
you're probably running through real quick to grab your Waterloos or whatever. But
Yeah.
but
Of
otherwise,
course.
you're not looking at the chips, you're not looking at the soda, you're not looking at the NOS and the Prime and
Yeah.
stuff or whatever because we know they're just like sugary over the
Yeah.
top drinks, whereas you're going to be buying protein powder, you're going to be buying, some sort of protein bars or whatever.
Mhm.
And so the more you can associate yourself with that vibe that you want to be a part of or that movement that you want to be a part of, the more you're going to be able to latch on to it and kind of ride the coattails of the other products in the space. And so that's for me far, it makes energy drinks clean. It takes the
Yeah.
dirty out of energy drinks. It makes me feel like, okay, I can drink this every day and it not be detrimental to my health. If anything, it's actually making me healthier because I'm getting more vitamins. I'm getting more, I'm getting all the stuff that I wouldn't get from a cup of coffee, and it doesn't make my, stomach hurt because coffee can be so acidic and stuff like that sometimes. And there's all these other benefits.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I think that's a very good observation. I didn't know that because I've never seen them. I mean, I've seen them in retail, but not like, I mean, I've seen pictures of it, but I haven't actually experienced it myself. So yeah, I mean, it's always cool. I mean, that's just like, again, a common theme we're seeing, these successful brands that can bridge across categories. Like they really can just bring in all sorts of new customers. I don't know if you saw this. I think that the energy market is growing,
Hmm.
like the energy drink market, but 50% of, and apparently Celsius only has 11% market share of the
Hmm.
energy market compared to Monster, who has 28, maybe. I think Red Bull maybe like 35 or 40. Um, but of the growth in that category, over 50% of it is from actual the Celsius brand.
Yeah,
So they are
that's not
really
surprising at all.
they're bringing in a lot of new people into the.
Yeah, yeah, because they're making it okay to drink an energy drink. They're making it socially acceptable.
Yeah,
There's no stigma around Celsius. It's actually more of a, oh, you drink Celsius too, kind of thing. Like, oh, I'm addicted to this stuff. It's like,
yeah,
is the vibe of all the other people I've met
yeah,
that also drink Celsius.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean it's a good looking can too. I think that's another part of it. They spent a lot of time on their branding. They've said that they want the like C in Celsius to kind of like be um, as ubiquitous as like Starbucks or Apple at some point, or like in the same category as like the claw marks from Monster.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, I mean I think that they're putting a lot of product development time into all of the different flavors as well. That's the other thing, is like they all taste great. Even the flavors I don't like, I'm like, this is better than any flavor of Monster I've ever had or anything like that.
Yeah, yeah,
And they're constantly coming out with new ones. They have the whole vibe series with the tropical vibe and the Oasis vibe, Astro Cosmic or whatever vibe. There's
mhm,
all there really is kind of a flavor for everyone.
yeah,
Which as we've seen over and over again, the more you can kind of keep it new, keep it interesting, even as you get people, it's going to keep retention up even more, and it's going to bring more people into trying for the first time and testing to maybe kind of gain that repeat customer as well afterwards.
mhm. Yeah. They definitely do a great job with product development. It's like there's all sorts of types of flavors, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so yeah. Okay, you want to talk? You want to dive into the marketing here, or where are we? Marketing.
Yeah, we kind of touched on marketing a little bit there
Yeah.
already, but let's talk. So they're obviously in retail. They have a
Mhm.
lot of convenience store presence. They have a lot of grocery store presence, um, and they don't sell D2C. Or did you buy D2C, or did you buy through Amazon?
Amazon. They don't do D2C,
Yeah,
or
they
their
don't do
D2C
D2C.
goes to Amazon. Yeah.
Exactly. So all
Um,
the links on their site just take you directly to Amazon. Um, and something that's really interesting about this, and you touched on this a little bit before, was that they exploded through COVID, right?
yeah.
And so prior to COVID, 2017 or so is when was it John, right? Yeah, John Fieldly took over as
Yeah.
CEO. They did 36 million in
Yeah.
2017, so pre-COVID, and then 2023 was that number you said before of 1.3 billion in revenue that they did last year.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so John has out in a couple interviews and said COVID was huge for us,
Mhm.
and a couple portions of that are one is the distribution that they were doing online. Um, so yeah, we have Amazon. They are one of the highest search energy drinks on Amazon. I think they might be
Mhm.
the highest search energy drink on Amazon.
Yeah.
Um, and then secondarily, which I found was really interesting, is that they were the first ever brand to sponsor the beverage section of Instacart.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So they kind of like partnered with Instacart really early,
Mhm.
during the pandemic and everything, as Instacart exploded, and they were continually sponsoring that actual like beverage section where people go, and so they were getting a ton of discovery through Instacart as people were moving online to purchase groceries, and also at home kind of doing their own thing, had more time to think about that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
They ended up being, they were on the front page every time as people were going through ordering their groceries. So
Yeah,
they attribute a lot of their growth to that partnership as well. Um,
nice. They
yeah,
definitely rank number one for energy drink on Amazon.
on Amazon.
Yeah, 95,000 reviews compared to Monsters. I mean, you can't rank reviews. Reviews don't always mean, sales, but I'm just looking at like who is organically at the top here, not
Yeah,
sponsored. Um, and in private browsing, and yeah, they are ahead of, like, a 12 pack is, um, they're ranked ahead of Monster
yeah,
and
yeah,
Prime and C4 and Rockstar, Ghost, Bang, um, all these other big players in the space, Rain.
yeah.
But I don't know if you know this. So I went through their annual report. Amazon is only 7% of their revenue.
Hmm.
Yeah, 7% of the revenue. 12% actually more revenue comes from Costco, um, which I am a
That makes
member of.
sense.
But I don't know if I'll have to go in and look. I don't think I've seen them in Costco. I'll have to go and see where they're positioned in Costco. That'd be interesting. Um,
Yeah.
and then I think another 20% comes from probably their previous distribution, sort of their random distribution they built up in Asia and with 7-Eleven and stuff. But over 60% of their, about 59% of their revenue comes from this Pepsi,
Mm-hmm.
the
Hmm.
distribution of Pepsi.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a huge partnership for them. It's
Yeah.
we've talked about this before, with
Mhm.
like Liquid Death and things like that. That shelf space is very hard to get without some sort of foundation in it as well.
Yeah.
So being able to have Pepsi as an investor, I think they own like what 8% or something like that. They invested like 500
50
million
million. Yeah.
dollars, 50 million, okay, 50 million
Yeah.
dollars so a few years ago, and having that kind of um, partner means that now every Pepsi truck that's coming to deliver Pepsi to grocery stores and stuff like that is also delivering Celsius and is there to help put up that signage and stuff that we were talking about in the different sections. And
Yeah.
then you're not kind of beholden to whatever you can scrape out, because that was something that they mentioned before, is that I can't remember the term for it, but it's basically the warm shelf, I think is what they call it. You can get, because Celsius is not in grocery stores sold in the 12 packs and stuff like that you get on Amazon. They're sold in individual cans. Every
Yeah.
once in a while, you might be able to buy like a 12 pack like pallet, but it looks like the pallet that the grocery store gets, right? And
Yeah.
normally they're putting them out individually. Um, and so when you're starting out, they have that kind of warm shelf that we talked about that's near like the water and the chips and the soda or whatever. And if you walk through there, you'll see all the Prime and the Bang and the Monster, and they're all just individual cans, but they're not cold. They're just sitting on the warm shelf, right?
Yeah.
Um, and something that they were saying is that early on, when they couldn't get traction, is they had two flavors that were coming out, right? So they have like two flavors. So that's just two little cans sitting on this entire warm shelf of all of these different cans with all this different branding and stuff going on. That one of the things that really helped them was releasing all of these flavors so that you get more of like a billboard, because
Mhm.
if you have five flavors sitting across of each other, you now have a bigger placement on the shelf. And then secondarily, you get more prime placement if you're being positioned by Pepsi, because Pepsi owns the spots on the shelves and then essentially leases or distributes them based on their partners and whatever brands they're bringing as well. So you're not competing as a small person fighting against Pepsi. You get to lease some of Pepsi's like real estate already on those shelves.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was a game changer,
Hmm.
um, and it really catapulted the revenue. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, like, not only the distribution in the store, but also just that distribution through through their carriers or whatever you want to call it, the logistics, the trucks that literally deliver the
Right.
stuff. Like, fighting for that space is hard. Um, and yeah, I mean, it's really it's I would say it's good that like Pepsi actually invested in the company. You know,
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
I don't know enough about these deals, but I was thinking, wow, 60%. That's a because technically Pepsi's their customer. You know, they literally talk about them that way in their annual report. And they say, like, when you go through the risk section, like losing Pepsi would be a big risk. And that would be huge, like literally over half the revenue. We think about this like customer concentration risk,
Yep.
like there's a big problem in that. Like again, if you lose that account, Pepsi, your revenue, you go from 1.3 billion to like under like literally like 500 million or something.
Yep.
um, but it's good that they invested because now they're literally invested in the brand, you know so it's not like they're just going to swap out Celsius with some other energy drink that's the latest.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Well, anything else you want to touch on with their marketing that you think they're doing right? Um, we didn't really talk about the events that they're doing. They are sponsoring a lot of sporting events and things like that. I think they have a NASCAR um, car. I think they have a Formula One car, or like
Yeah,
they're doing some sponsoring there. I've seen a lot of like pickleball and like kind of tennis events and things like that on social media from them.
yeah. There's nothing really crazy that jumps out with their marketing. It's only like half a million visitors a month are coming to their site. Again, like 60% of the revenue is coming from retail distribution. And we
Yeah.
see this a lot with the CPG, the large CPG brands. Like eventually, you know, um, their their revenue, they reach a scale with DTC, and the way to grow is through like brick and mortar, and
Yeah.
wholesale.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. But I mean, nothing crazy. I know they're doing like a big. They do some celebrity stuff. I think Charles Leclerc, the F1 driver, is
Hmm.
uh, sponsored by them right now. I saw some stuff. It's interesting. Over 75% of their traffic is organic,
Hmm.
so they're not doing a lot of paid stuff, um, which
Just a
is
bunch of
makes
people
sense.
looking up the weather.
Which makes sense. Yeah, it could just be Celsius. Yeah,
I'm
or it
just
could be
kidding.
the crypto thing that went bankrupt. I don't know if you saw
Yeah.
that. I
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
I was like trying to investigate the brand. I was like, oh, I totally forgot about this Celsius crypto
I did
exchange.
too until I looked into
It
it.
was like
Yeah.
a total Ponzi scheme. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think that another interesting thing too is a lot of their social traffic comes from YouTube, but I couldn't really find any like real driver of traffic there. They only have one YouTube video, you know?
Might be
So
ads.
yeah, they could
I
have
could see
some
them
ads
doing a
too.
lot of YouTube
Yeah.
advertising. Um, yeah,
That,
I
yeah,
mean the reality is, and we'll kind of use this as a segue into top reasons we think that
yeah.
why this brand works.
Hmm.
Um, we've had a lot of over this season um, of brands where the reason that the brand works is because of a celebrity or because of
Yeah.
a viral marketing tactic or
Yeah.
because of a just the sheer amount of content that gets created around like a certain brand or something like that. Um, but I think Celsius is a reminder for all brands and all operators and marketers that if you have a really good product and
Hmm.
you focus, really, really focus on product market fit and the positioning of the product with that good product, that is a recipe for winning. It might take 20 years. You really have to believe in it. You really have to kind of find that niche and listen to your customers and figure out who's drinking it or interacting with your product. But if you can find those people and you can really try to replicate the messaging that works with them and why they drink it or interact with it, then you're going to be able to find success with a product. It might not be on the 1.5, 1 point whatever billion-dollar scale, but you
Hmm.
can find success without a viral tactic, without an influencer, without some sort of, endless content stream or whatever, if your product really is differentiated enough and positioned well.
Yep. Okay, well let's jump in. What are your three reasons? I guess the first one's positioning.
Positioning, yeah. First one is
Okay, yeah,
positioning.
yeah,
Um, I think the second is just is taste. I think the
yeah.
product is great itself.
Mhm.
And then third is like the habitual nature of it as well. Like it has become, I don't drink coffee anymore, really.
Yeah,
Like I used to have like an afternoon coffee pretty regularly in my life. Now I have an afternoon Celsius. It's
yeah,
more convenient. It's more, it feels a little bit more refreshing than drinking like I don't know, an iced coffee or whatever. This kind of feels like having a soda, even though there's only 10 calories in it. So I think that ability to make it a part of my ritual, my routine is a big thing, and they aim to do that. And so I think that's another reason. So positioning, quality of the product, and focusing on routine are why it works for me.
yeah. I think for me, it's I think it has to be or it has to be positioning too. And not that I'm just like trying to rip that off from you. It's just that they literally put so much energy into that. Like they literally had to rebrand and they brought in
Right.
this whole new leadership team to
Right.
reposition the brand. And like how they are positioned in the category where it's
Yeah.
more gender neutral. It's more about lifestyle and living fit instead of like whatever, like you said, Monster Energy and
Hmm.
Red Bull's about something totally different. I think that is like really, really, really key in why this brand works.
Yeah, I mean, let's just be
Yeah,
real. It doesn't matter what other things we say. Like
yeah,
that is why this brand works. Like there, that is straight up
yeah,
non-disputable. That is why the brand works. Is their positioning.
yeah. So I think that is like the 80-20 here.
Hmm.
I think some other things that have really why they've been able to have success though and why they're working right now is obviously the distribution.
Hmm.
I think that they even just going back to kind of when um, you go back to when they went out of business or they were about to go out of business. They fired the co-founder. They brought in this new leadership team. He was very intentional about the distribution, focusing on profitable distribution, as you said, the 35,000 sort of true fans. They signed this deal in Asia. It still accounts for like 5 or 10% of their revenue, I think. Um, they signed that they got that initial distribution in like 7-Eleven. So they got like profitable distribution. And then I think they ramped up with InBev or something. I don't know if you read much about that. They took
Hmm.
baby steps to their distribution. It wasn't like they just signed a $500 million deal with Pepsi, you know? So I think they were very strategic in how they ramped up their distribution. So maybe it's more like strategic ramp up of distribution would be my my second one. Um, and then yeah, it's tough to think about the third one, but I would say like I would come back to the that common theme around like linking categories or being able
Hmm.
to sort of bridge between categories. We talked about it with Skims, how they were able to bridge like the shapewear and now the menswear and now some other like sort of stuff. We talked about it with Jolie. Jolie is probably one of the best ones where it's like they're a hardware, they're really like a lifestyle hardware company that's bridged themselves into beauty, and it's exposed them to this whole market. And I think that, what's key here is how Celsius is an energy drink company that is positioned as a health company. And they're
Hmm.
doing that with their mission around Live Fit. They're doing that with being, like you said, where they're on end caps in the pharmacy aisle, next to the supplements as opposed to in the soda aisle or the energy drink aisle, and like being able to put your brand across categories just allows you to bring in this whole other market or this whole other demographic into your brand, and I think it can really grow the revenue. And I think they're just another example of someone executing that playbook.
100%. Yep.
Yeah.
And there's actually one thing that we didn't touch on that
Mhm.
I think overarchingly is also a huge reason why they've been able to recover the way that they have.
Yeah.
Um, is that John Fieldly is a CPA. That's
Yeah.
his background. He
Yeah.
came in 2012 when what was the other Jerry David? When Jerry
Yeah.
David was CEO, he was the CFO
Yeah.
and then got promoted to CEO, and
Yeah.
that's really where they've found their footing. Is that I think Jerry did a lot to kind of recover them, but obviously they work together to let the numbers be the guide.
Yeah.
They've really lived that kind of like KPI incremental growth, being strategic about the numbers and how they're growing the business. Which that's another common theme right now. That if you are pursuing product market fit, positioning, and a quality product, rather than having an explosive, hockey stick of subscribers and followers or whatever to lean on, if you're Mr. Beast or Skims or whatever,
Yeah.
if you don't have that, it requires being extremely detailed with your numbers, knowing what your profitability is, finding ways to make the right deals that allow you to kind of balance scale as you try to move through that process. And so that's another thing that we could have spent probably a whole section on of they really kind of live that let the numbers be the guide mantra, which is cool to see, and a very a good lesson for anyone that's trying to find their own product market fit or their own positioning that will allow them to do it. You have to reserve capital. They've been through the ringer. They know what it feels like to be delisted, and they probably never want that to happen again. And so that means being really, really protective of your capital and really smart how you deploy it.
They're profitable. I think it's like a 17% profit margin. I think that's better than
Yeah.
Coke. I think in that $1.2 billion, there's literally 200 or $300 million in pure profit. Can't
Yeah.
say that for Liquid Death. Liquid Death is actually not profitable. A
Right.
similar company that's very fast trending brand right now that's also valued at around $1.4 billion. But they're
Right.
not publicly traded, so we don't know the numbers. But rumor has it they're not profitable.
Right.
So I think that that's a really good point. They really were just like really ran it like a bootstrap conservative business, and then it's just like they just hit the COVID, they hit that trend, and but it was profitable all the way through.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I mean, it just goes to show you don't need to like run this Silicon Valley playbook that I think a lot of brands were doing. Certainly up until the past 2 years, a lot of the D2C brands, we've talked about this whole D2C bubble that popped around brands just treating e-commerce companies that have like real hard inventory like a software company.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work when the capital runs out.
It's true. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, cool, good stuff. Great episode. And actually, everybody, this was the last episode of season one. We kind of decided just last minute that this is going to be a seasonal thing, and this is the end of the season.
Mhm.
We have decided to do so because we're going to go back to the drawing board, figure out how to make Y brands work even better. We'll have some new stuff coming out for you guys in the next couple months. We don't know exactly what the timeline is yet, but just know that we are just looking to make it better, looking to make it more interesting, more engaging, more valuable to you, more tactical. And so keep an eye out. If you're not following Will and I, the best place to do so would probably be LinkedIn. We'll have
Mhm.
lots of updates for you there. And of course, we would love to hear from you if you have suggestions as we're building stuff out and going back to the drawing board to figure it out. Please let us know because you're the reason we're doing this. So if you have something you want to see, we'll definitely try to figure out how to incorporate it. So thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you next season.
Later, guys.